did we see or listen to the presser with Gary Bettman, where Pierre LeBrun works for TSN, The Athletic, and Got Your Back podcasts? Did we hear that?
Yes, I got that in there.
Did you say that?
Hear
Yes.
that?
Yes, I did.
Pierre, we were on air because it was like, the State of the Union address. And I'm like, yeah, P. Yeah. I loved it.
What happened
I was laughing.
Fly those company flags, buddy.
Well, Bettman was giving me a gear, who you work, how many people you work for now? And I said, I'll name them all then. If that's what you want.
Oh, that's funny. Hello, folks, and welcome to Got Your Back, NHL edition, with LeBrun, Rishaug, and yes, Mystic Mike Johnson joining us on the podcast today. Of course, as always, Got Your Back, brought to you by our good friends at Cross Country Canada Supplies and Rentals, where they provide equipment and supplies to all facets of the Canadian construction industry. What sets them apart, though, is their get-her-done attitude. It's a core value of the company. They live by it. I've been to the head office. They actually have it on the wall. Get her done. So their employees know they bend over backwards to get their clients what they need when they need it. No excuses. Cross Country Canada, title sponsor here on Got Your Back. LeBrun, Rishaug, and MJ. There he is, MJ, back at the home post. I gotta say, bud, I don't know, Pierre, I'm the last one to hair shame, but Johnny, do you remember the episodes of Seinfeld where he used the different product? And his hair kind of got a little bit flat and a little bit different. It's not bad. It's a different thing you got going today, buds.
This is called Bedhead, and it is styled by My Pillow. And yeah, this is what I'm going. Oh, now this is what happens in the summer. I
love it.
I don't shave, this looks the same. I don't do my hair. I don't shower. I just jump in the lake. This is how I live. This is the way I operate. So you'll see more of this. It is a little bit whatever. Yeah.
It's fine.
Voluminous.
It's not bad. It's just not quite as coiffed as you normally have. He's not quite as coiffed.
But the other thing is, as you got introduced as Mystic Mike again, do you ever get confused Mystic Mike with Magic Mike? Because that could be, there's a difference.
Yeah. Listen, that's a different sort of service, but it's equally lucrative. But
equally lucrative.
What's funny though is I played in the NHL for a dozen years, and I've been on TV for a dozen years. I get more people who come up to me in the streets who be like, "Hey, Mystic, what happened last night?" More people latch onto these, these picks. So that moniker looks like it's going to stay for a while. Thank you very much, Duffy or Quizmaster, whoever came up with it.
By the way, quick little story. I was on a flight once a couple of years ago, and I just so happened to look over at the person beside me while we're about to get served a drink, and it was I'd say a woman in her 40s, and she was watching Magic Mike, and I kind of just happened to glance over, and then we kind of looked at each other, and she just went red. I was like, "Hey, it's all good. Don't worry about it.
It's all good. You're only human.
You're only the human. Movie's on the airplane.
Airplane movies. Let's say you watch one on the screen, not on your iPad, but on the screen, and it just happens to have you're watching whatever, and it has a scene that something that you're I don't know about. I fast forward through. I'm I don't want people thinking I'm watching.
You're sitting there. It's on your headrest right in front of you. The people next to you, beside you, 3 rows back can see it. And it's a full-on skin scene, full-on nude scene. And that they have those movies.
Yes.
So what do? So I always watch on my iPad, right? I always download, I've got it on my iPad. I always in a panic, flip my iPad down and I look around. I'm like, did anybody see that? I flip it down and then I'll hold it close to my chest and peek down. But would you judge somebody? What would you think, Pierre, if you look over and you see that? Do you sit there and think,
I just about gave her a heart attack and I had to calm her down. But it does cross your mind. I try to get action movies. First of all, I never want to watch a great drama or whatever on a flight because I'm distracted and the sound's not great. And so I try to get, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to watch that at home. So I basically go to my B list on a flight. That's my tack.
Yeah, I go to the personal devices because then you can have the noise canceling headphones and all that. To me, that's absolutely the way
Yeah,
to
I
go
would
on the
judge.
flights.
I would 100% judge.
You would judge?
I'm like, what are you doing,
What are
man?
you watching?
It's a public plane.
What are you
Go
doing?
get a room. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
true. There are
Mystic Mike-
children on this flight, good sir.
So Mystic Mike would be judging the person
Magic
watching
Mike.
Magic
Yes.
Mike.
Yeah,
Now that's
yeah.
interesting. Now that's
Well,
interesting.
Well, listen, whether you're
Conflicting brands.
crushing betting lines or peeling ones out of your belt line, Mike, we love you, and
Whoa!
we're happy to have you here on the pod. Lots to discuss
First
today.
off, ones. Come on.
Well, that's just it. You called it lucrative. I'm thinking,
Come on.
really? Like how many, you dodge the
One
loonies?
hundreds. Yes.
Well, guys, it kind of feels like the calm before the storm. There's going to be lots going on between the draft and free agency. Maybe we'll see some trades ahead of time. I'm not sure. But let's get to breaking it all down. And that will be brought to you by our good friends over at Kuma Outdoor Gear. A wide selection of really cool outdoor gear for you, whether you're looking for drinkware, whether you're looking for blankets, chairs. If you like spending time outside, as both you guys do out at the cottage, Kuma's got a great line. Really high quality, efficient stuff. Pierre, you got yours, right? You got your mug?
Yes, thank you very much.
But you don't
Already
have it on
in
set.
use.
You don't
Already
have it
in
on
use.
set.
Well,
You're
it's
supposed
up
to
at the
have
cottage.
the sweat.
It's up at the cottage where it should be. Come on.
All right.
And let me tell you, his drinking accessories of the cottage get great use. Great use. Daily.
Did I send you the wine cozy or did I send you the coffee mug? I can't remember which
Both.
one I gave you.
He'll put the wine in the coffee
both.
mug. Not a problem.
You put the wine in the coffee mug and drink it all down. Yeah.
Oh, man.
Okay, so the way I want to run things today a little bit, guys, is I want to talk about people of interest over the next week and a half or so. People that are going to be in the news potentially. And let's run down some of them and kind of eyeball what we think their weeks are going to look like. I'm going to start, Johnny, with Kevin Cheveldayoff. Pierre-Luc Dubois, Connor Hellebuyck, names that are out there, among others, quite frankly. These are franchise-altering potential moves and names. So for Kevin Cheveldayoff and the way he operates, we know he's methodical. We know that he goes about things and takes his time. To have these two high-caliber names floating out there, what's your sense of what he's facing and his ability to maneuver here?
Well, his next few weeks are going to be sleepless because these are massive, massive opportunities. Not you look at it like that, like a chance to really reshape your roster, but guys who have done you a favor by letting you know you're not coming back. Now, what he has to do is to kind of for the same for both players. He first has to gauge the league, or the players. Like, where would you sign an extension? And then work with those teams. Do you want to sign them to extension? Okay, yes. What would a trade look like where they are signed to an extension? That's the one part of it. If you can't find an extension-based landing spot, then you have to just shop around the league and get the best return. It's like working multiple trades on the same guy from different angles, all the while trying to maximize your return. I don't care about Pierre-Luc Dubois' return. I don't care about getting him to where he wants to go. That's the last thing I'm worried about. I'm not worried about making him happy. I'm worried about making me happy and trying to find a good landing spot. Now, because I think the teams will want to pay more if those players will stick around, he very likely will have to work with the players to try to get to them to their preferred destination. So if Pierre-Luc Dubois, it's Montreal, it's LA, have been widely rumored. Connor Hellebuyck, maybe not so publicly known where he wants to go. Michigan, Detroit is talked about. So you work with those teams and try to see if you can't work something out. But I think he has a chance to actually get players that will help their NHL team next year. If you trade those two and Scheifele, you're going to get 5 or 6 quality players back to put with Morrissey and Ehlers and Kyle Connor, and they could be decent. And there's a ton of goalies out there, not as good as Connor Hellebuyck, but other good goalies. You can get a goaltender, get Freddie Anderson in there to be a good starter. Like, I don't think Winnipeg it's all lost for Winnipeg, but Cheveldayoff will have to be busy kind of one deal at a time of this magnitude is tricky. He's got maybe 3 going on at the same time. That's gonna be hard to pull off.
Yeah, lots going on there for sure, MJ. And we haven't talked about the backside of this very much because we're sort of stuck in the moment. But part of the pressure, I think, on the Jets is not only to do it as well as they can in all these scenarios, but to come out of it with a team where you're telling Josh Morrissey and Kyle Connor we can still compete. Guys who have signed long-term to stay in Winnipeg. And that's a big part of this deal, because I think everyone on that team is watching this very closely. But no, I think, listen, I think you handle pretty much where it's at, MJ. I mean, I should say that, as Dregs reported on Insider Trading, it's not just Montreal and LA on Dubois. I think that was an important development yesterday, that Pat Brisson, the agent for Pierre-Luc Dubois, is looking at other teams as well, because remember that part of the genesis of CAA telling Kevin Cheveldayoff at a meeting in Buffalo at the Combine that Dubois was not going to sign with the Jets was also CAA saying, we want to work with you. We want to get something that makes sense for the Jets here in this trade. And I think that's important to note, because, I think CAA wants this to go as smoothly as possible and not become, a bitter divorce. But that is hard to handle.
One thought, let's say I'm Pierre-Luc Dubois, I'm Mike Johnson. I really want to go to Montreal. But Montreal has the luxury of knowing I only want to go there. They're not quite as motivated to do it maybe right this moment. Maybe some leverage play by saying, I will actually go other places if Montreal is not willing to do it, maybe to get Montreal into the game a little bit more urgency than they otherwise were sitting on the sideline waiting, possibly.
Yeah, this is where the agents make their money too, right? And coming up with these strategies, and it'll be a little different, Pierre, for each of them, what their posture is versus what they really want.
And everyone has a base position that we all have to remember. Montreal's is, we're not competing for a cup soon. So we also know you're a UFA in a year, technically, in theory. So we're not going to overextend ourselves here. That's Montreal's position, I know, even though they want the player. Winnipeg's position, let's remember, is that they actually own his rights for another year, as per the CBA. Now, why you would want to get into a contracted standoff with a player who says he's not going to sign, I'm not 100% sure, but it is within their rights. All these things are baselines that we got to come back to as we figure out the exit here.
Big picture thought here on executing these moves, guys. And I saw something somewhat similar happen here at Edmonton between Taylor Hall, Jordan Eberle in a matter of a couple of years. 3 critical pieces of the organization that are potentially going to get moved. And Johnny, is there any chance that Winnipeg, if you judge a trade by who ends up with the best player, I mean, they're not getting better players back. They're downgrading at all 3 of these positions, and they're doing it potentially in 3 important positions in one summer. You downgrade the overall what you've got in each of those trades. You do.
But I guess you're trying to make up as much of it as possible on the aggregate, right? By adding, if you send Dubois to LA and they send you Gabe Vilardi and Quentin Byfield, you're like, well, maybe in a year, like those guys could give you something like Dubois gives you. Like that's the hope. It's a challenge. That's the hope. But there's the other part about Winnipeg, and Kevin Cheveldayoff would know this. You've heard Paul Maurice talk about it. You've heard Rick Bowness talk about sort of the room and the way it was being operated and their inability to maybe rise to the occasion in different moments. And Kevin Cheveldayoff, it would be hard to make these kind of trades in a vacuum, because you'd open yourself up to just a massive criticism. But when your hand is being forced, it's almost like a free pass. Like, I have to make these trades because these guys aren't coming back. I got to do it. So now he has a chance to revamp his team on the ice, his locker room culture, and what all that entails. And they're hopeful. The hope would be that at the end, maybe not next year exactly, but in a year or two, they come out as a team more capable of winning in the playoffs. That's the hope.
Yeah, it's and I feel for the Jets, because let's just call it for what it is. We just had a cup final with Vegas in Florida where Matthew Tkachuk, who was one of the central characters, had a list of 5 teams a year ago, 12 months ago in July, and 5 or 6 teams, and Vegas and Florida were both on it, along with Tampa, Colorado, Carolina. Carolina was a runner-up in that trade. But it's always the same places that are on players' lists. Winnipeg not on those lists. And so, Winnipeg's done a lot of good things since Atlanta moved there. They draft pretty well. They build some good teams. But the reality is they can't compete in free agency. So they either have to trade their way into augmenting their roster, or they have to continue to build through the draft and also hope to extend their homegrown players. That's a great contract for Kyle Connor. He's a heck of a player. I mean, that's what you have to do. But this summer is huge, because what happens at the end of all this if Kyle Connor's like, well, this isn't what I signed up for. And I don't think that'll happen, but I'm just saying that's always the pressure there in a place like Winnipeg.
Big summer for the scouts too, because it would seem to me all three of those players are guys that get traded for one piece plus a prospect or someone else in the system. So for your pro scouts to know who is the exact right guy to go get that maybe is 2 or 3 years into the system and close to being ready, or among their drafted players recently, who's the right one to go get. If you can hit on a couple of those through your scouts, really helps round out that trade in the following years. Next on the list of interesting people. Sorry, Pierre, you want to add something?
I was just going to say, I don't know if you're going there next, so I apologize. But to me, the way more interesting situation is Connor Hellebuyck. And I'd love to hear MJ's take on this because
yeah, we can stick with Winnipeg here for a minute.
Well, the Connor Hellebuyck situation is right at you've got a lot of modern front office people saying, let's not spend on goaltending anymore. And yet, Connor Hellebuyck and Andrei Vasilevsky essentially are the only two guys that get nominated for the Vezina almost every year in the last 6-7 years. Like, he's the last, we know what we have in goal guy available. I guess you could put UC Saros in there, but, I don't think the Predators are actually really want to move him. They'd have to get overwhelmed to move him. But Hellebuyck's on the trade block. Once again nominated for the Vezina this year. It's what he does every year. But MJ... that's why I think the Devils thing is interesting, as I reported yesterday. I know New Jersey's talked to Winnipeg. But I also think within that Devils front office, there's probably some people saying, only if we can get him at a price we can live with, because we just saw Aiden Hill win a Stanley Cup in Vegas.
Yeah, that's right. That's the crux of it. Are we better off with a $4 million goal and a $1 million backup and take that extra $5 million to spend on our players? I mean, I think there's a real... unless you have one of those couple of guys, but Hellebuyck is one of those couple of guys.
He is.
That's the problem. But I almost wonder for a team like Jersey, if we'll trade for him for 1 year, but we're not signing you to an $8.5 million extension. We're not giving you that for 8 more years. We like you at 6
for a year and win a cup.
And we're going to take a run for 1 year and we'll figure it out after that. There'll be some players there, but yeah, Hellebuyck, I equated it to running backs in the NFL. The teams just don't want to pay them anymore. And it's gone that way in the NFL. And I think it's sort of swinging that way in the NHL, where goaltenders are going to be hard pressed to make $7 or $8 million again with the cap. Let's say hard pressed to make 10% of the cap, which is strange given it's the most important position, but it seems like more people are evaluating that way, Shoggy.
It's funny the way Bob could be the cautionary tale, yet here he has totally redeemed himself. Redeemed himself. Yet he's been the cautionary tale on the goaltending front for a number of years here, for sure. Next on my list, guys, is Dimitry Orlov. We saw what he did when he went to Boston, right? It was impressive, 17 points in 23 games. He had 7 assists, or what was it? 8 assists in 7 games in the playoffs there. Really interesting player here, top of the list in terms of people that are potentially available. MJ, how much of a difference has Dimitry Orlov shown that he can make with a team, and how much money did he make himself?
Well, he made himself a lot. That's an easy answer, right? He'll make himself a lot. But, Boston was such an unstoppable force in the regular season. I'm not saying anyone could have gone in there and did what he did. That's not true. But Tyler Bertuzzi looked like an incredible top flight player. I would just be leery. What is he going to get? $6 million a year, Pierre? 6.5, 7? I don't know if that guy on a lesser team. This is the problem. You put him on a good team, he looks awesome. You see what he did on the good team. You put him on a not so good team without the same sort of support around. Well, hang on, but you're not the guy we saw on the good team. What happened? Well, because I don't have the good players around me. So I don't know if he's a true, whatever you want to call a number one. He might get paid like it, but Pierre, that's what I would be worried about. If he goes to some team if he goes to Arizona. We always pick on Arizona, but if he goes to Arizona, he's not going to give you that kind of performance. That would be my concern.
You better stop picking on Arizona. They're gonna take your banner down there.
No. I am entrenched.
You
I'm
and
entrenched.
Vegas, you and the Vegas franchise have been so hard on Arizona between Cassidy
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Carlson and Mike Johnson.
That's it.
Poor Arizona.
And they're celebrating. I got nothing. I'm with you. Go ahead, Pierre.
So let's back up on Orlov. I always like to say let's start with what we know, and then we can extrapolate from there. What we know is that Washington tried to extend Orlov before they traded him at the deadline to Boston, and the talks broke down over term. Orlov's camp wanted a long-term deal, and the Caps weren't ready to do that, so they traded him. So that tells you that if they were ready to draw that line in the sand in a place where he was pretty happy playing with Ovechkin and Kuznetsov, etc., he's probably not going to back up on that stand now heading to free agency. He's going to want a long-term deal. So that's number one. Number two is David Severson just signed a heck of a deal with the Columbus Blue Jackets, and that has an impact on the UFA D market. I don't care what you say. And yeah, you could say, well, the Blue Jackets, it's so hard for them, kind of like Winnipeg sometimes to acquire talent that they had to pay the price they had to pay. But still, that goes in the coffer, and everyone else around the league says, oh, there's a new contract. So at the end of the day, it's got to be at least $6 million a year, if not $7 million a year, based on this new reality with what's just happened. So I agree. When you talk to some front offices, they view him as a 1/2. Other guys see him more as an excellent 3. The market will bear it out, and the reality is there just aren't a lot of UFAD available. So I think
he's about to be 32.
Right.
He's about to be 32. I think Severson's a little bit younger than that. So
that's a good point.
And if he wants term,
but I just meant AV more than term.
Yeah. No, I got it. 100%. 100%. Yeah. But if he wants term, 8 years takes him to 40. I'm not like this. This is where the juggling act becomes tricky.
Yeah. I think 6 years is probably the most he can get. My guess is it's probably going to be 5, but we'll see.
6 years, $40 million. Knock it down here, Shoggy. 6 years, $40 million.
So that's where that's the handicap. That's 31 is what Hockey DB has him on. July 23rd, he was born. So yeah, he will be 32. Getting up there. Yeah, he will be 32. That's next name on the list, Connor Bedard. We will speak about him ad nauseum next week at the draft. MJ Quizmaster has Bedard on the list today because the one question that he just really wants me to ask you is, how good is Connor Bedard going to be? Like, is he of the top overall picks that have come in?
That's all he wants to know?
No. He just, you've seen him a lot. You've been at events. You have a real good sense for his game. And Pierre, you do too. But I mean, we're talking to the Mystic one and the Magic one here. So of the first overalls that have come in, there's different layers of it, right? There's obviously there's the McDavid layer. There's the the Matthews layer. There's the, where do you project him to be here?
Jack Hughes layer, something like that. I mean, Jack Hughes is incredible. Yeah, like he's not McDavid or Matthews. I don't think that is fair. We say generational players; those feel like the 2 generational players that have come in first overall in the last decade, right? But I
does Matthews get that title? By the way, is that commonly used with Austin Matthews? Is that that's the convention?
Didn't he just score 60?
Yeah.
He scored more goals per minute. 5-on-5 than anyone in the last 30 years. Okay,
I'm in Alberta right now, and Alberta.
No one's saying he's better than Connor McDavid. You just relax there, the Oilers guy. No one's saying anything. We're not making that conversation today. So he's incredible. He's an incredible offensive player. I get that he's smaller. Smaller doesn't really matter so much in the NHL anymore. The only question I have about him, the only question that would stop me from putting him like in the ultimate high end, is he's not a great skater. He's a good skater. He gets to where he has to go clearly. I never see guys catch him, but he's not that fast. So that's the one thing that maybe will hold him back. And if he plays wing, because it's hard to be a great, top flight impactful guy on the wing. But like I look at him, his absolute floor is what Cole Caulfield's done, which is like a 40-goal scorer and a point-a-game guy. That's his floor. It's only going to go up from there. And quickly, as long as he gets a couple players around him, Chicago, Pierre. I mean, I think he's not the very best of the first overalls, but he's in that next grouping just underneath them.
Yeah, and listen, I really judge my reaction to all this on what people who have watched all his games tell me, because I don't cover junior hockey and have spent enough time around them. But what I often get is, can he be Patrick Kane plus? That's what I often get. which is a Hall of Fame career, by the way. So, and that's based on the hands and the vision and the creativity. MJ, I think you nailed it. Where's the skating at, etc. But his release is unreal. It's such a modern
top 20 in the
approach.
world today.
It's unbelievable. The modern approach and the release and the ability to score in traffic. I think that will translate extremely well to the NHL because that's what it's all about now. It's something Austin Matthews has really brought to the next level in the NHL, in my opinion, as well. So yeah, let's just give the kid a chance too. Like, I think it's a little overwhelming and we're all guilty of it. I mean, heck, we made a video song at the trade deadline at TSN about tanking for Connor Bedard. But,
they can handle it, Pierre.
Yeah.
He's going to be
He's very
just
mature.
fine. They can
very
handle
mature.
it. We don't have to be careful and handle with kid gloves.
Yeah.
and
Okay,
all that.
Shoggy, Pierre.
They're built for it.
I'm going to give you a quick mystic. I want an over-under. I don't want an explanation. 39.5 goals next year. Over-under. Shoggy?
Under.
Pierre?
not a very good Chicago team, but I'm still going to go over.
Okay.
Because I think what you have is winning.
No explanations. No explanations.
Okay.
Just yes or
I
no.
like it. Oh, Johnny's producing again. Here we go.
73.5 points over and under.
Under.
Shoggy? Under. Wow. Pierre?
Oof, I think that's right about right.
That's why I said it.
Crappy team.
Listen to you.
I like being positive. I'll go the over.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Johnny? And I'm not trying to throw fly in the ointment on. Did you say no? You're fired. Taking over the podcast and then refusing to participate.
Well,
I love
what would you like to ask me?
Well, I want to ask both of you this question. So, and I'm not trying to throw fly in the ointment or pick holes in his game. I mean, he's spectacular. We've all seen it. But a lot of his goal scoring is rooted in the toe drag and the shot, right? You pull it in and you shoot. Pull it in close to your body and you shoot. He loves to do it. He's always looking to do it. It's his method. I wonder for a player that doesn't have the foot speed that will separate him in the NHL, where time and space is the first thing that disappears at the next level. I wonder how well that's going to work at the next level. And I would not be surprised at all if we're talking about Connor Bedard having to find different ways in his first season in the NHL. And if it isn't a little bit tougher without that time and space, I wonder about that.
I think of the 110 goals he scored last year, several of them were that variety, but he also scored 50 that were not. But like
a pile of them. I mean, off the rush, Johnny, that's his thing, man. He's always looking to load it up that way, which is good.
Yeah, he can, but the power play's there as well. Like he can take one-timers, he can do a lot of different things. We've seen him in breakaways when he gets in alone. I've seen him, rebounds, tips, stuff. He's a goal scorer. Like, I mean, he scored goals at a level like even, Connor McDavid didn't score at when it was his draft year. So like you can talk about whatever and those, but no, you could have put him in the NHL this year. He would have scored 35 goals this year.
So you're taking the over on, what'd you say, 41 or 47?
I said 39.5.
So you're taking the over on that.
The biggest limiting factor is his teammate. Like he's not on a good team. That's going to be the hardest part. But
right.
I expect him to get 73
that
points.
Can cut two ways. It can cut two ways. It can, don't you think, Mike, it can hurt you in terms of obviously you're going to put your top D pairing against him. But on the other hand, you could be in a 6-2 game and say, let's just worry about scoring goals. I don't know.
He was never not going to be in the spot to score. Yeah, I think he'd be better with some better players around
I think
him.
you need good players around you. I think you need to be able to have off nights. You need to be able to get hidden in a lineup behind some guys that have done some things before. I think it's setting up for trouble if they don't get some better players around him. I watch, and again, different players, but I watch what happens when you bring in a first overall pick and put the weight of the world on him and don't surround him with players that can handle some of that weight. And I think it's a mistake.
Respectfully, he's better than every first overall pick in Edmonton, but one.
Yes, and that's why I said it's different. Going to be fun to watch. And then maybe at the end of next season, we'll remember this conversation. We can pull up clips and clunk each other over the head with
that's what we're here for.
Our wrong prognostications.
He's not better than one former Oiler who was never drafted.
No, the all-time leading scorer, Wayne Gretzky.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, Ryan. Come on.
I was thinking about decent guys.
Wow.
We're just waking up out there. I'm the bedhead. You're the one with just waking up.
Kill both their mics, Zuby. Kill both their mics. We're moving on. Matvei Michkov, I think is going to be interesting too. I think he's going to be interesting, you guys, because he's a bit of an enigma. Like, wasn't at the combine, hasn't interviewed with a ton of teams. I know he's going to get himself out there a little bit at the draft. and teams are going to be interested in him. But this skill level that you see and that you hear of, but where he's rated to go in an otherwise really deep draft, Johnny, it feels like it's taking a chance for a guy that might not be around for a little while. So with all of there's a certain amount there's a certain amount you don't know. He feels like he's far away. Like, where would you be comfortable taking him, Johnny? Top 8, top 9, top 10? He's probably got top 5 skill?
Yes. I would take him. I'd take him 5 if I'm Montreal. Montreal's not going to be good for 3 years. They have Pierre, what's his name? Dobrov, who's one in their scouting department. Is that his name?
From that, brought over from the Rangers. Yeah.
Nick Dobrov, I think his name is. He's really tapped into the Russian situation. They can wait a couple years. Montreal's a cosmopolitan city with a wealthy, if take out the contract and the geopolitical situation, he's second or third in this draft, clearly. Mm-hmm. So I think Montreal 5, although if we're going to be Mystic Mike all day, I think Washington 8 for obvious reasons. I don't think he gets past 8. And I would not be scared away of the contract. The geopolitical stuff, maybe, but the contract, no. I can wait a couple of years for a guy like that. I think no way he gets past 8, Shoggy. That's my call. Pierre?
I'm having a really tough time handicapping this. I think that for Montreal to do it, Ken Hughes is going to have to be really overwhelmed by his staff telling him to do it, is my impression of things. But we'll see. Not that this is going through anyone's mind, I don't think. But one of the things that's interesting, if you know it's going to be at least 3 years before you get the player, is that if you look at Minnesota, I think it was Chuck Fletcher who drafted Kaprizov. I can't remember, but whatever the case is, Bill Guerin's the guy who inherits Kaprizov eventually. It was like 2 GMs later.
Right.
George McPhee drafts Kuznetsov, but Brian McClellan gets to bear the full fruit of Kuznetsov. I don't know. I mean, there's there's a side to this that is realistic too, in terms of
I want a player who's going to help me.
Yeah. I mean, come on. And again, I think that Kent Hughes and Jeff Gordon are so early into their program there in Montreal that I think there's some longevity there for sure. So I don't think that'll factor in, but at the end of the day, it's also not a big guy. I don't know. Corey Pryman wrote a great piece on it in The Athletic yesterday and balancing the pros and cons with all his scouting contacts. And you kind of leave the piece saying, I don't know what I would do. It is absolutely really got a lot of people torn up.
The only thing that's interesting, Shoggy, is that he's kind of picking and choosing who he's interviewing with. It's almost like he has in his own mind where he'd like to go. And if it's not Montreal, then I'm not going to meet with you, and then you're not going to draft me. I don't care if I go 12th or 14th or 8th. I'm going to try to go to the spot.
So if he chose not to meet with you, are you taking him?
No.
Because clearly there's an intention there to not really want to be there, right?
I don't think so.
So on top of everything else, if all a player did was be choosy about who he met with, never mind everything else, that'd be red flags all day long. But this guy's got all the other stuff that you talked about as well. So
what if Connor Bedard didn't want to meet with Chicago? They're not going to take him?
Well, that's different.
Well, but that's the spectrum, right? Depending on who you are in your situation, you can dictate some of these things and maybe have control, or teams will be willing to pass, or maybe you're so good they're not willing to pass. But it does feel like he's being a little bit choosy, which I don't mind. Don't tell me about kid, go to where you're supposed to go. Nope. If you can influence your own life, have at it. It's nothing but props for you for doing it.
And again, we don't want to get too deep on this, but it's the real life part of it, which is scary. But the war in Ukraine and the team that he plays for in the KHL and all the, permutations to that, boy, there's a lot of uncertainty for sure.
Last name on my list, Steve Staios. We know there are strong ties to the Andlauer Group in Ottawa. And Pierre, we will say with respect to the existing staff in Ottawa, because I know that's important to you, but there is potential for changes. And so Steve Staios is kind of top of everybody's mind as a potential move into Ottawa. We don't know what the timeline looks like before they'd even be able to pull the trigger on something like that. But it's interesting how often he is suddenly talked about. I guess, had Andlauer never come around the National Hockey League, or if it went a different way, is Steve Staios somebody, Pierre, who would have been on radars to be interviewing for any GM jobs that would have been coming up over the next year or so? Or did this expedite him being in that conversation, this Andlauer situation.
Yeah, it probably expedited it, but boy, he's really well liked.
He
Steve
is.
Staios
Yeah.
is seen by a lot of people as a future NHL GM. And again, I always say, let's start with what we know and go from there. What we know is that the relationship there is really strong between him and Andlauer from their work together in Hamilton. That's the real life thing. That's how this business works. I mean, it is what it is. Now, that doesn't mean that maybe the timing doesn't work or the Oilers entice Staios to stay. Who knows how this all works out? I mean, timeline-wise, with the ownership, with finalizing the sale to Andlauer, we're looking at least August, if not well into September. So this isn't happening anytime soon in terms of that kind of decision. But yeah, I mean, making that link between Andlauer and Staios is based in a real-time experience. It would surprise no one if you wanted to hire him.
It's not a leap here. This is not a massive connection we're looking to make. And I can talk about his prospects. Like, isn't he supposed to be Ken Holland's eventual succession plan?
Well, they're working on that right now. So my understanding of where it's at right now, Johnny, and then I'll let you continue with your point, but just a bit of an update here as I know it to be. I think upper management has had a brief conversation with Staios. I think until Steve Staios has something firm in the way of an opportunity, right, there's not really a lot of discussion to happen there. I think the Oilers have engaged in a process to come up with a succession plan for Ken Holland. They need to know what the plan is going to be. I believe they've talked to external candidates. They have some very strong internal candidates, and Staios is one of them. I think they want to get themselves to the point where should Staios come to them and say, I got this chance to go do this, they'll know where he fits into their picture and what they're prepared to offer him at that time. So I think the process is underway of figuring out succession as it pertains to Staios.
And I'm not saying this just to be, but I think you have to allow over the possibility that once Andlauer gets to know Pierre Dorion a little, because he's going to have to, there's going to be a period of time where that's still happening, that, what if they hit it off? I think you have to be careful. I always assume where this is headed. And I think you have to put that.
I put the caveat in at the beginning. I put the appropriate caveat in there. Johnny?
I just say, listen, he clearly is a very smart, talented, young, fresh, new, open-minded executive. Everything the NHL needs. Anything a new team or an old team needs. The fact that he is in the conversation in some capacity at Edmonton tells you that the people who work with him know him best, think of him in that light. So now if you have a guy that you worked with before, had great success with before, are incredibly close with, owns a team, I mean, I think Steve Staios would be top of line. If they make a change, he will be the GM. The question is if they make the change. I don't think it's going to be someone different if they do. The question is just if they do or not. And we are all friends and familiar with Pierre Dorion and DJ Smith, and we understand they're in a tricky spot. But if they go down that road, I think
but if
Steve
the
Staios
Edmonton Oilers said to you, Johnny, listen, the job's yours next year, and you're sitting there with McDavid and Draisaitl and all that ready, and the cup window and all that, what are you doing? What would you do, Johnny? You got your buddy that wants to bring you in on something fresh, or you got,
How much am I getting paid?
I knew you were going to say that.
And there's Magic Mike. I asked you to be Mystic Mike. And you're Magic Mike. It's all about how many dollar bills I'm getting.
What's my contract? If you give me matching 5-year, $2.5 million a year contracts, probably Edmonton. Wow, but 5 years.
Your chance to grab a cup, man. It's your chance to grab a cup. And once you have that
Draisaitl's future.
Yeah. Once you grab that cup, P, nobody takes that away from you. You've got that for future negotiations, Johnny. You got to remember that.
Ottawa has a chance to be a pretty good team in a year or two.
Yeah.
Pierre?
Yeah.
What would you do?
By the way, apropos of nothing maybe, but I want to point this out.
What does that saying mean?
Well,
Quizmaster said that to me today too. I need to Google that.
Well, it just means that there may or may not be a tangible segue.
Relative to nothing, exactly.
Yeah.
So I probably shouldn't bother bringing this up, but let's take some time.
Well, no, I actually, it's something that I've thought about with Andlauer, and so I want to share it with our audience, is that Andlauer sat in with Jeff Molson and Jeff Gordon in the interview process for when they hired Kent Hughes. Andlauer was part of the interview team. And I find that interesting for a couple of reasons. One is that so he's got to meet a lot of different team executives. The Habs had a pretty extensive process. saw the presentations those candidates had, saw the kind of questions they wanted to ask these candidates. But also, when you have a new owner sometimes in the NHL, their level of understanding of what a GM looks like is so low that they have to rely so much on Gary Bettman and Bill Daly for help. Andlauer will need none of that. Andlauer has been a minority owner in the NHL for 50 years. And so he's coming in knowing the exact landscape and also having actually been part of a GM interview process, which I think puts him in a different boat than most other new owners. I just want to point that out.
Well, and he'll also know exactly what the current staff has pulled off. He'll have context on that. He'll understand their body of work. He'll be making a highly educated decision.
And he can make it quick. Like he'll be able to make it as soon as he gets official ownership, whenever he's allowed to
if you're the owner of a team and you're taking over, I mean, you got to make those calls now. This next couple months is so important for an organization to have to wait. That's got to be
tough timing.
Definitely tough timing. All right, gentlemen, we have one more segment here on the podcast, the game show. You know it, you love it, taking the country by storm. Red card, yellow card, no card. Mm-hmm. And that, as always, brought to you by our good friends at Liberty Smart Security, a company that specializes in having your back. They got high-quality advanced smart security systems for your home or your business. They use leading-edge technology to protect the things that you value most in life. Your home is your castle. Your business is your castle. Protect it with Liberty Smart Security. And an additional mention that if you are a business and you're needing a security system, they do fantastic work for commercial businesses as well. It's not just residential. So if you're a business owner, check out Liberty Smart Security. Okay, guys, I'm not wanting to be the fun police. I am not the fun police, right? You win a Stanley Cup, celebrate, have a good time. Yeah. We've heard a lot of hand wringing since this whole mess that we saw, right? So I am not being the fun police by this. But there's a few elements to red card, yellow card, no card. I need you guys to answer each of these individually because I'm going to throw them at you as individual red card, yellow card, no cards. Okay? I'm not being the fun police. In the big picture,
like you're getting prepared to be the fun police.
Yeah, well, then people might think I am. Yeah. Okay. The first of 3 red card, yellow card, no cards. Your team climbs the mountain and wins the Stanley Cup. You've been waiting your whole life to win that Stanley Cup, and now it's time to celebrate with your people. The parade happens, and it's time for your team to take the stage, center stage, and you decide, I need to take my shirt off. Johnny, red card, yellow card, no card.
No
Tarp
card.
off at the parade.
No card. You're in Vegas. I was there. It was 120 degrees. I wish I could take my shirt off. You're in good shape. You're doused with beer and sweat. You're having a big party. You're basically at Lollapalooza/Woodstock. Yeah, take your shirt off if you want. No card. It's Vegas. You think people are going to be offended by having a shirt off? No card. If you got the physique, as all these players do, to pull it off with great confidence, have at it. No card whatsoever.
P?
Yeah, that's only a red card if it's me or Gary Lawless who covers the Golden Knights. Hey, I put myself.
What did Gary do? Gary's not here to defend himself.
I'm saying Gary and I are brother in arms in a certain category. So yeah, no cards. They're having fun, man, and the pressure and the grind of the 2 months and perhaps a one, no card.
No card, no card. I'm going to go yellow card because, I don't know, whatever. It just feels a little. I wouldn't pull the tarp off, but
doesn't mean you can't. Just means you won't.
Yeah, whatever. Someone's got to be the dissenting voice, or it's just a bunch of agreeing on the segment. Okay, second red card, yellow card, no card. You've climbed the mountain. You're celebrating with your people. Center stage. Your shirt is off. You have the microphone. And you're dropping F-bombs. Red card, yellow card, no card. Pierre.
I'm going to show my age and the fact that I'm a father here. I'm going to go yellow, not red, but yellow because I think there are probably some young people in the crowd or at least kids the next day watching the video who are big Golden Knights fans.
Oh, you fun police. That's lame. Hey, Johnny, isn't he lame?
I respect that, but I'm going to say no card. You know why? Because those people at that parade want to get a glimpse into what life is like in the dressing room, and the language in the dressing room is unbelievably crass. Like there's more curse words said. like I try not to swear in regular life, but it would take me like 3 weeks to transition out of swearing from the dressing room to swearing at the dinner
You
table
don't
with my
swear a
mom.
lot, actually, Johnny. Now that I'm thinking about it, you
That's
in your
true.
day-to-day vernacular, very seldom do you cuss.
I try not to unless I bump my toe. But so I'm going to say slight yellow, but mostly no card. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna go yellow card on that one too, just because there might be kids out there, but they're having a good time.
Yeah, go watch HBO. They're swearing. They've heard it before.
If you bring your kids to a Stanley Cup parade with a bunch of guys partying in Vegas, chances are they might tarps off. They might hear some F1. Okay, last one.
Yeah.
You have climbed the mountain. You have won the whole holy grail of hockey. You're celebrating with your people. You're center stage. Your tarp is off. You're throwing F-bombs. Someone comes and tries to take the mic from you, and you twice dodge them and continue with your lengthy speech. Johnny, red card, yellow card, no card.
I'm going to give William Karlsson a yellow card because everyone, let's say the Oscars, everyone's got a time limit. But I'm also giving the woman
music, right?
who had the hardest job in the whole parade trying to get him off the mic a bit of a yellow card too. Like, recognize the moment. He's wrapping up.
It was a good effort. She tried. She did 2 flybys on it. 2 flybys. Tough job, man. Tough job.
Yellows for
Credit
everyone.
to her.
Yellows for everybody.
So yellow. Okay.
Yeah.
Pete.
I'm gonna go no card because one of the things that's fascinating to me is that it was him that became this character on this night because he does not do that much media. He's a very nice guy, but very quiet guy who goes about his job, absolutely beloved by everyone in that room by all accounts. And so I think it's fascinating that of all the players on that team, if you would have told me before the parade which guy I would have picked, he might have been the last person I would have picked to be that character.
Do you know what my favorite thing?
Steve Austin.
Yeah, my favorite thing about his speech, you guys, by a mile, was that he remembered he had no points in the opening game against Arizona. We played Arizona and we beat, he said what he said. I had no points.
But I was pretty good
burns
that
him,
year.
Johnny, that he was held pointless in the opener.
But then he reminded everyone that he was pretty damn good that year.
Yeah. Career year.
Epic.
So I can be pointless if I score 40. That's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, epic performance. All right, guys. Epic performances by you on the podcast as well today. Look forward to seeing you at the Draft P, and Johnny will be touching base with you as well. So have a great finish to your week, fellas, and thanks for today.
All right, guys.
And thank you for your downloads, your subscriptions, your participation here on Got Your Back, NHL edition. Thanks to our sponsors, Cross Country Canada Supplies and Rentals, Kuma Outdoor Gear, and our great friends over at Liberty Smart Security. Leave us a review on iTunes if you get a minute. Let us know what you think. Want some feedback here on Got Your Back? Talk to you soon, folks. Cheers. We want to tell you about a truly Canadian company. Cross Country Canada Supplies and Rentals provides equipment and supplies to all facets of the Canadian construction industry. But what sets them apart is their get-her-done attitude. It's a core value of their company. I've been to the offices. I've seen how they proudly display that on the wall at each branch. Every one of the staff members lives by the get-her-done formula to ensure they'll never let their customers down. They'll bend over backwards to get their clientele what they need when they need it. They don't make excuses. Cross Country Canada takes great pride in this attitude, and they truly believe that the success of their customer is their success. You can't get much more Canadian than that.